Talking about the professional profile of Mr. Eraj Abeywardena, he holds a bachelor's in catering degree obtained at the University College of Hotel Management and Catering in Budapest, Hungary. Having obtained his degree, he then worked in some of the leading hotels in Hungary before returning to Sri Lanka in 1976. He then joined the Lanka Oberoi, which is now the Cinnamon Grand, in the food and beverage departments and became the first Sri Lankan food and beverage manager. With over 40 years of experience in the hospitality and leisure industry, he is a specialist in food and beverage, and in the training has been able to use his valuable experience in overseas 5-star hotels for the benefit of the hospitality industry in Sri Lanka. Since his retirement in December 2003, he has been involved in doing consultations for the industry and has given his expertise to advise on several projects. Presently, he is the Director of Studies at Imperial Institute of Hospitality and Leisure. He is also a consultant of Amaya Hotels, Resort and Spa, and also a board member of Serene Pavilion, which is a boutique hotel, and the board director of Winston Hotel Developers and Services Private Limited. Welcome on stage, Mr. Eraj Abeywardena, representing the Institute of Hospitality.
Good afternoon. I am also a committee member of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority of the Hotel Classification Committee. That is the reason I took this subject, because it relates to the public as well as very much to the architects, because we strongly believe that there has to be a harmony between the architects, the investor, and the hotel. So based on that, I took this subject, and I will go through with it, and we take harmonizing the concept is the most important thing. You harmonize the concept. Architects bring concept to the table. When a hotel project or a boutique hotel or boutique villa is on, architect has to bring the concept to the table. That's the first step. Of course, the architect will be briefed by the investor. Then you go to the next one. It should be harmonized by the hotelier also. Because very often, when we go on inspections, we see that the harmonization is not there. So the harmonization between the architect, the hotelier or the consultant should go in line with the project. And then the next one is, I took 3 samples of hotels. The first is Bentota Beach, which is now renovated and refurbished. The second one, if you see, it is the Kandalama, Heritage Kandalama. And the third one is Heritage Avongala. All these 3 hotels were designed, conceptualized by the late Mr. Jeffrey Bawa, who is an icon in the industry, in the architecture. I know there are so many of his colleagues who are following him. So the harmonization is very important between the architect, the hotelier or the consultant, and the investor. Harmonizing the journey. What do we do? The guest journey. Creating spatial and sensory experience to the guest. Luxury, comfort and ambience. And the functionality. So that is the part of the architect. Very often the ambience, the luxury is there, but the functionality is not there. That is why I say the architect and the consultant or the hotelier has to work together. Then the staff journey, service delivery, which is very important. Food and beverage, housekeeping, kitchen, front office, and back of the house. I call it the heart of the hotel because the back of the house is the most important area where a lot of guests doesn't see. When we go on inspections, we don't go to the front office, we go to the back of the house. Because as I say, that is the heart of the hotel. You can have a beautiful lobby, you can have a beautiful rooms with suites, but if your back of the house is not there, then you lose. Now when I say back of the house, I refer to the kitchen, the storage, and very importantly, the staff areas. You want to retain your staff, especially now, you have to look after your staff. You have to give them decent accommodation, you have to give them decent meals and other facilities, otherwise they leave. You all know the world is opening up, so if you don't look after our staff, they leave. So that is the harmony of the journey. What is hospitality? Hospitality is a harmonious mixture of food, beverage, shelter, physical environment, behavior and attitude of the people. That is hospitality in a very nutshell. The 5 A's in tourism. First is the attraction. We have abundance of that in Sri Lanka. Accessibility, not only to the hotel, but within the hotel accessibility. How is your corridors? Are they properly lit? Those are very important. Then accommodation, of course, accommodation are the rooms. What kind of rooms do you want? There are certain regulations in the Tourism Development Authority, which I'll go through later on, where the sizes of the rooms, toilets are mandatory. Then we have the ancillaries, right? Requirements, toilet, bathrooms, and then we have the amenities. Special amenities for special people, special amenities for differently able people. Now it's a law in the country that hotels have to have a minimum number of rooms for the differently able people, and the differently able toilets, rooms are also specified as to how you should develop it. So that is the first part of my presentation, where we talk of harmony, harmony between the architect, between the consultant, hotelier, and the investor. Now we go into the criteria. This is law of the country. If you notice this picture here, I have taken it from another beautiful hotel in Veeravilla called Hilton Doubletree Rajavardhana. So if you see the harmony here is harmonizing with the environment, and the rooms of course are a different thing. So let me go into the basic of classification and criteria guidelines. Seeing stars. Some of the most imaginative hotels in terms of architecture and interior designing, amenities are being developed around the world. There are so many different hotels coming up, underwater hotels. And from underwater hotels to treetop hideaways, new properties. Now there is a new concept in Sri Lanka, not new, it's about 15 years old, where we call boutique hotels and boutique villas. Those standards and building to ratio land area has to be big. And we say it should be better than a hotel of a 5-star hotel room. That's why we call it boutique hotel and boutique villas. Then we go to the next one. No matter how much hotel innovate, there are some basic requirements for all properties. As I told you, there is a law now in the country which is gazetted, which I'll go through now. If you don't adhere to that regulations, then you won't get your classification, normally you get your registration. So that's why I said as much as we look at the public areas, we have to look at the back of the house. Why star? Now this covers the criteria and it determines what grade you will get from 1 to 5 if it's a hotel property, or if it's a boutique villa and a boutique hotel, it's a different concept. Star classification requirements. Now I was talking about the requirements. We have 3 requirements. These are mandatory. Whether it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are mandatory requirements which you have to do, otherwise you won't get registration, nor will you get your classification. Then we have minimum requirements from 1 to 5. And finally, we have the non-mandatory requirements. That is a marking system. I'll go through it a little later. So the 3 mandatory is for all hotels, there are mandatory requirements. Then for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there is another requirement. So if you want to get your hotel classified or registered, you have to ensure that the minimum and mandatory requirements are met. Otherwise, we don't classify the hotel, nor do we register the hotel. Once you have all these done, and the SLTDA team goes and inspects and says, yes, the mandatory things are down, then they register the hotel. Once they register, we give them about 6 months to 1 year for classification. Then they make a request to the SLTDA, and based on the request, our team goes to the hotels and we do a complete inspection, thorough inspection. And now I will tell you the differences. As at 20th, the classified hotels, there are 145 hotels. Unclassified 223 hotels. Because unfortunately, some people don't want hotels to be classified for various reasons. Because they don't have the mandatory requirements. If they don't have the mandatory requirements, you can't classify. And then total registered hotel asset 2020 is 368 with 23,000 rooms. Now, if you take the next 18 months, there is about another 12,000 rooms coming in Colombo. We have JW Marriott coming in, Ritz-Carlton coming in, Sheraton coming in, then Intercontinental is coming. So there are a lot of international chains coming into the country, which is very good. And of course, the port city is going to have a 1,000-bedroom hotel coming in. So Colombo is going to be flooded with international hoteliers, hotel chains, which is very good for the country. But there is one problem we are facing at the moment. I'll go through it later on. That's a human resource problem. So next one is classified hotels, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4, 5. These are the classified hotels at the moment, but the last year we couldn't classify a lot of hotels because of the COVID virus, but now we have started classifying hotels again. So this figure will be different maybe by end of this year. Then we have another segment called Supplementary Tourist Accommodation. That's what I told you about boutique hotels, boutique villas. You have to have minimum 5 rooms for a boutique villa and maximum of 20, sorry. And for the boutique hotels, maximum of 50 rooms. Then you have the guest houses, homestay, you know what is known as B&B, Airbnb, we have a lot of rooms in Colombo. Heritage bungalows, heritage homes, rented apartment and rented homes. These are all for tourism. So there's another 11,500 rooms in the market. Now I go into the one which I was talking to you about, minimum requirements for any hotel to be classified. You see, now this minimum is for all hotels. 1 to 5, all hotels should have the minimum. Minimum is 10 rooms. Then you have to have a separate service entrance. So basically, why are we asking for a separate service entrance other than the guest entrance? Because otherwise your garbage, your food stuff, all come from the main entrance. That is not acceptable. So that's why we say you have to have a separate service entrance. There has to be sufficient good quality water. Water reports are requested by the SLTD every year. Then you have to have hotel building more than 3 floors. Must have an elevator. Not only a guest elevator, but a service elevator also. Now then we come to the room sizes. There are minimum room sizes for the star grading hotels. 1 to it is 17 square meters, which is about 180 square feet. You multiply it by 10.76. Then if you see the 5-star hotels, it's 22 square meters. It's about 280, 260 square feet. That is without the toilet. Then we have the main entrance door must lock automatically when you pull shut. You see, when a guest comes out of the room, sometimes he just closes the door and walk out. He doesn't check. So if the door doesn't lock automatically, anybody can go into his room. So that is why this is mandatory. Now a lot of hotels are following it. Otherwise, they have to replace the locks. Then an exit plan. Exit plan from the room to your fire assembly point must be put on the door, very clearly stating the route that you take in case of a fire or an emergency or whatever you call it. Then we have mechanical ventilation in the toilet. Toilet has to be ventilated properly. Housekeeping, another area where they have to have a separate pantry for the housekeeping. On every other floor, it's a building with a lot of floors. And then you go to the restaurant. There should be a restaurant for the resident guest. It's a la carte menu. And adequate refrigeration. This is all in storage. Now we are very, very particular about storage. We don't allow meat products to be stored with seafood because there is what we call a cross-contamination. So seafood has to be separated, meat has to be separated. They are in freezers, temperature controlled. And then there is the other things called vegetables, fruits. They are not in a freezer, they are in a normal temperature controlled area again. And of course the dairy products. So we are very particular about these things. And also facilities for hand washing. Now it has become mandatory because we insist that when you enter the kitchen you have to wash your hands. Or if it's limited space, we ask them to have a sanitization, which is okay as the same thing. Then there should be a separate area for washing pots and pans. Again, this is another hygiene factor. We don't allow them to wash pots and pans in the kitchen, but we ask them to go into an area that is away from cooking. Then what I told you before, deep freezers, dairy products, eggs, then the perishables, groceries, they all have to be separated and properly stored with what you call a first in, first out, FIFO. Okay? And then there is one more important thing here. Of course, the cellar will have to be there for your wines. Where the volatile substances are concerned, that is paint, turpentine, which is volatile, which can catch fire, we don't allow them to keep it inside the hotel building. We ask them to store it separately in an open area, so that even if a fire is detected, it can be controlled easily, than to have it in your building, inside the building, which can cause a lot of problems. Okay? Then the other thing is dry garbage. Dry garbage has to be sorted at source, separated, that is bottles, paper, cardboard, all the dry garbage. The wet garbage has to be kept in a ventilated area, separated, preferably with a AC, depending on the size of the hotel. If it's a small hotel, we allow them to have it in a, but if it's a big hotel, it has to be with a air conditioned unit separated. That is again because garbage smells. You keep it for 2 days, it smells. So that is why we are insisting on these mandatory things. Safety and security of the guest. Now it's not only the safety and the security of the guest, but of the staff also. It is equally important. Signage has to be properly lit in your corridors with the exit path, because in case of a emergency, your lights go off, then you have to have a lighted exit path. And of course the fire assembly point also should be lit up. Then protective measures for lightning arresters. Some hotels don't have it, but you have to have it. That is for your own protection of the hotel. Of course, the insurance policy, comprehensive insurance policies, first aid facilities, these are all security measures. Then I go to the pool. Now this is another area we find a lot of errors. Now we don't allow the pool depth to be more than 4 feet. That is again for, you see, pools are not meant for diving. I know when I first started in 1976 at Lankovra, we had a 12 feet pool. Now it's not allowed. Maximum is 4.5 feet. That is for reasons. One is for your cost. You see, you have to chlorinate the pool. You have to have a pH level of 7.2 to 7.4, chlorine level of 0.5 to 1.5. That's the accepted norm world over. So if your pool chlorine level is not enough, then you tend to get your eyes red and various other illness. What happens in Sri Lanka is, most of these guys go and put the chlorine in the night, depending on the size of the pool. You can put 5 kilos, 2 kilos, depending. And when you go and check the pool quality of the water, we do check the water quality, around 12 o'clock, very often it's 0. Why is that? Because it evaporates. So what we have now recommended is to have a dosing plant in your plant room. After 2 weeks, your level of chlorine and your pH will be the same. So you don't have to worry. And the other most important thing is depth marking. Unfortunately, don't misunderstand me please, some architects don't like depth marking. There was a hotel in Bentota, a boutique hotel. When we went to check it, there was no depth marking. We asked the owner. Owner said, no, it's not necessary because I give a piece of paper when they check in, giving the depth marking. Now, who is going to take that piece of paper and go to the bowl? Again, guest safety. Now he has put it. Because we have to always think of the guest safety and the staff. They are both equally important. Then of course the differently abled rooms. Now there was a law in the Supreme Court, there was a guy who filed a petition against the hotels about 8 years ago, which he said every 25 room you must have one differently abled room. For instance, Shangri-La has 300 or 400 rooms. Imagine the number of differently abled rooms. It's not practical because some people don't like to stay in the differently abled room. So now we have discussed with the SLTDA and they have put up a paper which is now going to be law. We say for every 100 rooms have one. Because if you have 500 rooms and if you allocate 20 rooms for differently able, you calculate your RevPAR, it comes down. Because your toilet has to have the facilities for differently able. You have to have a seat on the shower where they can sit and take a shower. So this is something now, it is going to be law. We are waiting for the final approval from the lawmakers, and then it will, a lot of hotels will find it easier than to go in for one for every 25 rooms. Then also we look at drivers' accommodation, especially in the resorts. You see, they take 3, 4, 5, 6 hours sometimes to get to their location. And we now insist that they must be given some kind of accommodation, especially in the resort hotels, not in the city hotels. A decent place to sleep and a decent meal. The staff areas are very important. Staff locker sizes are equally important because they must have sufficient area in the locker to hang their clothes. They must have enough area for them to wash before they come to work. So all this is mandatory simply because we are looking at the staff welfare also. So that's a mandatory for all hotels. Now this is the mandatory for 1 and 2, which is very marginal, right? Centrally deposit security lock. You can have it in the central without in the rooms. Then we go to the mandatory for 3, 4 and 5. If you look at it, the 5-star hotels should have minimum 30 rooms. And their square area or their suites is 65 square meters. That is to ensure that the suite is a suite. It has to have 1 bedroom minimum. You can have 2 bedrooms, but you also can have 2 or 3 bedrooms, depending on the quality of your hotel, quality of your suites that you want, whether it's a penthouse, junior suite, or whatever you call it. So this is that. Then a generator. 100%, a generator should be able to take 100% of in case of power failure. So that again depends on the number of rooms you have, the restaurants you have, and then your electrical guys calculate the generator capacity. Adequate service elevators. Again, I am talking of the main door lock. It has to be locked with a double locking system. And in case of an emergency where a guest locks himself in the room and is ill, there is a system where you have an emergency key, which is with the general manager or locked up to be used in case of an emergency or double locking. Then again we go into the bars. There should be additional restaurants for 5-star, minimum 1 specialized restaurant. There should be 2 bars. And ice cubing machine. A lot of hotels have ice cubers, as you all know. We insist that those ice cubing machines are connected to a UV filter. Why is that? Because the UV filter will take the bacteria out, because we take the ice and put it into our drinks. So if there is any bacteria in the ice cubes, then there is an issue. Then we insist it having a glass washing machine in addition to your dishwashing. What is the reason for that? You have your dishwasher. You bring plates, put it into it, especially after breakfast. Eggs. You smell a plate sometimes when you go to the hotels and see if they are not properly washed, you get that bad smell. Now, if you have one washing for your plates and your glasses also start smelling. So now we are insisting that 5-star hotels should have a glass washing machine in the bar or in the restaurant, mainly in the wash-up areas. That is again for hygiene standards. You know, we in Sri Lanka, I'm very, very sad to say, we are far behind hygiene standards when you compare to the world. We say we have HACCP, we have various certificates, but that is only a certificate. When you go and check, we find it's not implemented. So that is why this is very important. Your ice cuber, your wet garbage, differently able people, all that. So that is the mandatory and minimum requirements for all hotels. Unless you comply with all these, your registration will be not given. We are the law of the country, the gazetted, the law of the country. You can go into the SLTDA website, you will find all these documents. And then there are 4 main criteria for marking. Do I have any more time? 10 minutes? Okay. Can I take another 10 minutes to finish this? Okay. Now, there are 4 elements when you go for marking. This is what I told you, non-mandatory. There are 5,000 marks that is there in the non-mandatory thing. Brand image, safety of the guests, staff, and sustainability. Those are the 4 things, fundamental things that are in the marking system. I'll go through it fast because I have no time. Right? Now this, if you see, there are marks. What I highlighted in yellow is the most important areas. Right? We say the building and the architectural features should reflect the ambience of a 5-star hotel, and we also request something with Sri Lankan architect, bring in our culture. Recently we went to a hotel in Untitled, I can't tell you the name, but that single owner, 350 odd rooms, his icon is an elephant. From the lobby to the rooms to the restaurant, all over elephants. Of course, carvings. So that's why I say have some kind of Sri Lankan character in your hotel. Don't go for European concepts. We don't want foreigners come here to see our concept. I don't know how many of you know, when we opened Lanka Oberoi, we had 3 boutiques in the lobby. Those are the largest boutiques in Asia. Unfortunately, it's no more there. So that's why we say get an international brand, but go with a Sri Lankan concept. Then guest corridors, I told you earlier. These are all marks, right? So you have to, I'll tell you how much you have to achieve. Then bedrooms, lighting, Very often when we go to the bedrooms, the lighting is very poor. So we now have told them what kind of lighting we need. We talk about lux, that is the luminous. Minimum of 300 lux should be there in the bedroom where you read, bedside lighting. Toilet. Sometimes you go to a toilet, you can't even shave because the lighting is very poor. Ladies can't put their makeup. So that's why we have told different size on-face mirror lighting, right? These are what we are talking of. These are international standards, not in Sri Lanka. Then again, bathroom, again I am talking of lighting, 300 lux on the mirror. When you go and look at a mirror, you should be able to see properly so you can shave. Ladies can do their makeup. Otherwise you can't. So these are again various things. A coffee shop 24 hours have to be in operation, right? Then restaurant and bar. Kitchen. Kitchen is another area that we are very particular because of the hygiene standards. Kitchen walls must be all tiled, preferably with white for easy cleaning. The floor must be with non-slip impervious homogeneous tiling. Because kitchen, if there is a lot of water, oil falling, so if your tiles are slippery, God help you. Then free of insects, which is very important. And now we say kitchen has to have only stainless steel tables. No wooden tables are allowed because they breed cockroaches. You know, there are 3 kinds of cockroaches in Sri Lanka. The American, Asian and the German. And once they get into wood, they grow in heat. It's very difficult to eliminate. So that's why we are insisting on stainless steel. Shahina, foot-operated bins color-coded. When you are working in the kitchen, if you have to open the bin with your hand, then again cross-contamination. So we say foot-operated color-coded bins. Quality, functionality, right? Gas, electrical equipment, right? So these yellow ones are the ones that are highlighted. When designing a hotel, internationally accepted safety standards should be adhered to because you are catering to international market. Then recreation facilities. Again, facilities for the different label. Staff accommodation, you were talking about it. These are all marks if you see, right? Then environment is another very important thing. Sustainability, carbon footprint, environment all going hand in hand. Today people are investing in solar to cut down on your electricity charges. So if you have solar in your hotel, you don't have to worry about your power, right? Then recycling of your waste. If it's a resort, how is your sewerage used? Are you using the water? Recycling the water into your garden. So these are things that I have marked. Now if you see, there are 500 marks total. Now out of 500, if you want your hotel classified as a 1-star, you have to achieve minimum of 2,000. If it's 2-star, 2,500. If it's 3-star, 3,000. If it's 3-star, 4-star, 5. And if it's 5-star, you have to achieve minimum of 4,000 marks, otherwise you won't get it. So it's not easy. Though there is 5,000 marks, when we go and mark, we mark as a team, and we agree, we discuss and mark. So if you don't have these marks, even if you have your mandatory and minimum requirement, you won't get your grading. So These are the charges. I mean, I don't think it's necessary. So I conclude, if there is anybody who wants to ask a question or anything, you are welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Eraj Abeywardena, for your presentation.